So this is question 6 of my evaluation on what I have learned about technology when producing my media production. First of all, we're going to talk about what we used to produce the production. This was the Canon EOS 700D and some softbox lighting. I'm first going to talk about the Canon 700D, which is a camera that has a range of functions. First of all, probably quite a prominent feature for producing a media production film is that it shoots at 1080p, 24 frames per second, which is sufficient enough for what we wanted to do while producing our production, as we did not need any higher frame rates as we weren't shooting any slow motion footage, and the 1080p gives good clarity. Not only can the camera shoot in 1080p, it also has a range of other settings which give you fully auto, so that means that the camera decides everything for you. There's semi-auto, there's aperture priority, shutter speed priority and things like this, but we decided to shoot fully manual because this gave us a freedom of how we wanted the footage to look, and also as we have experience of using cameras, we knew the right settings which gave a good look, and it meant that we had the right kind of lighting, there was no noise, and exposure was good. We also chose to shoot on a flat colour profile, which gives us freedom while editing to have better colour correction. And finally, the last function that was of usability to us was the fact that all DSLRs have the ability to have interchangeable lenses, which was great when shooting our production because we needed a range of different angles and we had a range of different lenses to use, and these lenses also give the function to choose between auto and manual focus, which means that when we were shooting we could perform focus pulls, for example in our title sequence, and also it allowed us to control what we wanted in focus and what we wanted out of focus depending on what was the focus of the action at the point in the production. We used all these functions that I've listed to give us professional quality clean footage that turned out really well, and we were very impressed with. And this was quite an easy technology to use because both me and Chris have experience of DSLRs, and we did use our own cameras while shooting it, so we have experience of how to control them, how they respond to lighting conditions, and we knew our lenses, which again helps with choosing aperture points and ISO and shutter speed. Again, for when filming, we knew what lighting and settings we needed. The good thing about using this particular piece of technology was that we had clean footage, there was no noise, down to having good lenses, and overall the footage looked professional because it was completely controlled by us. It meant that there was no point in filming where if we had an auto, sometimes cameras tend to change their settings when you're filming, which can completely change the look if lighting conditions change, which we didn't want because that would have meant refilming a lot of footage. And also it gave us sharp footage for the fact that it was shooting in 1080p. So if we had the money, ideally we would have chosen a higher end camera. This maybe would have given us a higher resolution, we maybe could have shot in a higher frame rate, which would have led to some more natural looking shots, as it's not noticeable to many people, but it can give a more natural feel if you're shooting at something like 60 frames per second. And this having a higher end camera is not exactly necessary, down to it only being a school production, so we didn't also have the budget to fund this, but if we did, it would have been a possibility. So the next piece of technology that we're going to talk about is the lighting. Now, our lighting for our production, we use softbox lighting. This is just standard softbox lighting that you can get from many places, and this of course only has one function, which is to light the area you're shooting in. Now, we used this throughout a lot of the production, mainly the conversation scenes, as these were shot in the evening inside a house, and if you're just using the lighting in your house from your ceiling or any other lamps, this gives a yellow effect, whereas the softbox lighting allows us to have a white effect, which again makes the colours more accurate, doesn't affect white balance, which is a major thing when coming to post-production because it saves time in post-production as you don't have to colour correct as much. So the reason for using softbox lighting was so that we had clean footage that looked professional and was not noisy. And regarding ease of use, this was a very easy piece of technology to use. There's only an on-off switch on our softbox lights, so the rest was down to changing camera settings. This was a very easy thing to use, and if you're a young filmmaker with no experience, softbox lighting would be a very easy thing to use. So the good thing about our softbox lighting was that it gave very professional footage. As I've said already, it was clean, there was no noise, but a downside to this was the scale of the softboxes. They're quite big, they're not a small thing to use, and as our conversation scene was shot in quite a small dining room, this compromised our lighting because we could not fit a light behind the secondary camera. So next I'll be talking about what technology we used to enable us to have good post-production, and this was down to Premiere Pro CC 2014 and After Effects CC 2014. So both these programs are to do with post-production stage. One is for editing, which is Premiere, and After Effects is mainly for our titles. So Premiere CC 2014 has a whole range of functions that are effectively endless. There are many things you can do to edit your footage. Now personally, I use the stabilizer tool, which meant that any shaky footage, we use the stabilizer on top of that, and it effectively sort of crops in the footage, moves the footage about, and it means that overall it gives a more stable look to the footage. This can compromise something that's within shot, but it tends to have a very good effect, and especially for our quite dynamic shots we used, where in our title sequence it enabled us to have a quite good looking footage in the end. The second function we used was colour correction. Now the colour correction was used through an adjustment layer, and the adjustment layer enabled us to put this over the whole timeline, and then we could use the adjustment layer where we wanted to on various footage to make sure that the white balance was continuous throughout and that colours were continuous throughout. Now for me this was very easy to use. I have very extensive knowledge within Premiere. I use it a lot for editing video, and so these were very basic skills for me to use. And in regards, if you're a filmmaker that's just starting out, then using the stabilizer is actually very easy, because all you have to do is drag and drop onto the piece of footage that you want to use, and then it effectively does the rest for you. So it analyzes the footage for you, as you can see just behind me, and it then stabilizes it for you, and then you are done. So a good thing about using Premiere was that it enabled us to use some very shaky footage and make it smooth. Now in our title sequence we had very dynamic, fluid shots that were achieved by using the stabilizer. Without the stabilizer we wouldn't have been able to use those shots, and so the production value would have been compromised. Secondly, the adjustment layer. Without this we wouldn't have been able to have continual footage that looked professional throughout, as we did use the adjustment layer a lot to change white balance and the colours of certain aspects, because they didn't come out right when shooting. It would have been even better if we actually had stable footage in the first place, because then we would have not had a need to use the stabilizer. And also something that I did learn is that you cannot use a slow-mo and stabilizer on the same clip. Premiere simply cannot process that, which meant that some of the footage in a title sequence was a little too short, which meant that our final title with No Nightmares did not have as much of an impact because it was very quick. If we were to reshoot, then of course we would have moved the camera a lot slower, so that we could have still used the stabilizer but then not had to worry about speed. Also, the stabilizer doesn't always work on all footage, meaning that some footage was not able to be used because the stabilizer simply wouldn't work on it. So if Premiere had a more efficient way of analysing footage, and if it was a bit more accurate, then we could have used this footage. Our second program we used was After Effects CC 2014, and again, like Premiere, this has a whole range of functions depending on what you're wanting to do, whether you're making titles, animation, and you can in fact do colour correction within After Effects as well. The main functions we used within After Effects was the masking tool, the stroke effect, and I also used a plugin called Fade In, which allowed us to have the flat effect onto the paper, and for us to be able to analyse and track the footage. So we used After Effects for our title sequence, and this gave us the ability to produce a handwriting effect on the titles from both a combination of the mask tool and the stroke effect. Now, as can be seen behind me, the mask tool effectively layers out where the text was, and then the stroke tool follows on from the mask tool to then reveal it as handwriting. So the plugin was in fact one of the things that helped the most and gave the biggest effect, and the plugin effectively allowed us to have the titles lay flat on the page and also be able to track those pages so that they would stay in place even while the camera was moving around them, which meant this gave a really professional effect, because before our titles were just floating around the screen. Now, the plugin was quite hard to get used to, and it did take me a while to find this plugin online, as I tried using in-house in After Effects some effects that analyse footage and track it, but these were not suitable because they didn't track the footage enough, which meant our title still moves around, so it wasn't accurate enough. Once I had found the plugin, it was actually quite easy to get used to. There was multiple tutorials on their website to show you how to use it, and once I got to grips with this, it was a very quick process. So what went well? Well, the titles came out very professionally, they looked very good, and overall I was very pleased with how they laid flat on the page and how they appeared. It would have been even better if some of our footage was longer, because the handwriting effect was limited, as some of the footage was too short, which meant the handwriting was very quick and rushed, and this did not have the full effect. In conclusion, I have not learnt a lot about technology to help me produce our production, but I did learn a lot in After Effects, which has expanded my experience, and it has been a big learning curve using After Effects. Using Premiere, I'd been used to using that a lot as I edit my own video, but it was still good to practice my skills and to learn that I couldn't use slow-mo and a stabiliser on the same piece of footage. But I'll be definitely going back to After Effects to learn some more.